The wind howled across the plains of Sable Creek, a once thriving town slowly surrendering to dust and time. The winter storm had rolled in fierce and unexpected, locking down roads and blinding even the most experienced riders. It was on the third day of the blizzard that Clay Maddox, the wealthiest rancher this side of the Arkansas River, saddled his horse with a frown cutting through his weathered face. He wasn't riding out for cattle, nor to check his fences. He'd received word, late, that the town's only nurse, Clara Danvers, hadn't been seen since she went out to visit a fevered child on a homestead 2 ridges east. 3 days ago. They said she never made it back. His ranch hand had murmured that morning. Most figure she's dead. Clay didn't waste another breath. His stallion, Samson, charged through drifts of snow that reached the horse's belly. He knew these hills, but even his eyes struggled in the biting wind. Clara had only been in town 6 months. A war-nosed turned frontier healer, she'd come with strong hands and sad eyes, never speaking of the past, but bearing wounds no one could see. He found her by the old willow grove, her medical bag frozen stiff, clutched in her arms. She was half buried in snow, lips blue, skin pale as candle wax. Clay slid from Samson and dropped beside her, panic rising. But she was alive. Barely. Chapter 2. Healing at Hollow Ridge. Clay didn't return to town that night. He brought her to his secluded ranch, Hollow Ridge, where the hearth burned warm and the silence of the plains offered peace. Clara drifted in and out of fever for 3 days. Clay rarely left her side, changing compresses, feeding her broth when she could swallow, watching her chest rise and fall as if the rhythm itself kept him grounded. When her eyes finally opened, wide and confused, he was there, hat in hand, unshaven, exhausted. "Where?" she rasped. "You're safe," he said softly. "Found you near Willow Grove. You've been here 5 days." She blinked. "The boy." "His all right. The Thompsons got him to town after the storm broke. You saved him." He paused, voice thick. "Nearly cost you your life." Her lips trembled, whether from cold or emotion, he couldn't tell. But what she whispered next hit him harder than any blizzard. "Why did you come for me?" Clay stood, jaw tightening. Because no one else did. Chapter 3. Scarred Hearts. Over the weeks, Clara regained her strength. Clay offered no conditions, just his home, his help, and a strange sort of quiet understanding. She moved with a limp now. Her left leg had suffered frostbite, but she insisted on owning her keep. She mended ranch hands, stitched wounds, even helped deliver a calf one frozen morning. But despite her warmth with the ranch hands, she kept Clay at a distance. He watched her one night as she stitched a torn steel bag by lantern light. "You're different," he said. Clara didn't look up. "I've been through different." He approached slowly. "What happened before you came here?" She hesitated. "I was engaged. He was a surgeon. We worked together during the war. Thought he loved me." Her fingers paused. "Until the day I got hurt in an explosion. Left with a limp, burned arm." He said he didn't want to marry a broken woman. Clay's chest burned with fury. "You ain't broken," he growled. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." She looked up, surprised by the force in his voice. He took her hand, gently. "I've known women who wear ribbons and smile pretty, but I ain't never met one who'd crawl through snow to save a child and not think of herself once. That strength, Clara." Her eyes shimmered, but she said nothing. Chapter 4. Trouble Comes Riding. Word got out that Clara was staying at Hollow Ridge. Whispers floated through Sable Creek, judgmental, sharp. She was unmarried. He was a rich rancher, alone. They called her names, painted Clay as a man taking advantage. Then came Gideon Price, a slick-tongued cattle baron with more greed than spine. He'd always wanted Clay's land, and Clara gave him his opening. One afternoon, Gideon rode up with 2 deputies. "Evening, Maddox," he drawled, tipping his hat. Heard tell you're harboring a woman under questionable arrangements. Clay stepped out on the porch, shotgun in hand. You came out here to talk gossip. No, Gideon said with a sneer. I came to offer her a real position. My ranch needs a woman's touch. Maybe she prefers someone who doesn't live like a hermit. Clay didn't flinch. She stays where she chooses, and she's chosen here. Gideon's smile twisted. That's so? Shame. Reckon it'll be mighty hard for you to keep this ranch when the bank hears you're shacking up a charity case. Clara had stepped out behind Clay by then, trembling not from fear, but fury. I'd rather freeze to death again than live under your roof, she snapped. Gideon's grin dropped. Have it your way. He rode off, but Clay knew it wasn't over. Chapter 5, Fire and Redemption. That night, the fire started in the barn. Clay and his men raced to put it out, but the wind carried the flames fast. Horses screamed, smoke billowed, and by dawn, half the stable was gone. It was Price. One ranch hand growled, Sure as sin. Clay turned to find Clara in the yard, her face streaked with ash. He strode to her, gripping her shoulders. I'll take you to town. You're not safe here. She shook her head. No. I ran once. Clay. Let people break me. Not again. They stared at each other, the cold wind wrapping around them. And for the first time, there were no walls between them. I ain't scared of dying, Clara whispered. But I am scared of living without you. Clay leaned in, brushing her temple with a kiss. Then stay, and we'll face whatever comes. Chapter 6, A Reckoning. It didn't take long for the law to sniff out the truth. Clay rode to Sable Creek with 3 witnesses who'd seen Price's men near the ranch the night of the fire. The sheriff, an old friend of Clay's, took the evidence seriously. Price was arrested, but damage had been done. Reputation, pride, safety. Clay returned to the ranch expecting Clara to be gone. Instead, she was at the paddock, brushing down a mare. You really think I'd run now? She asked, smiling faintly. He took a slow breath, walking to her side. I don't just want you here, Clara. I want you here forever. If you'll have a stubborn fool like me. She toned, eyes soft and filled with something deeper than gratitude, love. I'd follow you into the next blizzard, Clay Maddox. Chapter 7. Their love became legend. They married in the spring, under the same willow grove where he'd found her half buried in snow. The whole town came, ashamed of how they'd whispered before. Clara walked with a cane, but Clay said she stood straighter than anyone he knew. She opened a small clinic at Hollow Ridge, serving ranchers and settlers who once couldn't afford care. Clay expanded the ranch, hiring veterans, widows, and orphans. Together, they built more than a home. They built hope. People began to tell the story of how the wealthy rancher saved a freezing nurse, and how that nurse, in turn, saved him from a life of loneliness. Their story spread across counties, whispered in saloons and told to children. A story of hardship, of loyalty, of redemption, of how love, born in the coldest of storms, burned bright enough to light the West.